The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, its vibration breaking the afternoon silence. David wiped his flour-covered hands on his apron and glanced at the screen. His wife's name glowed at the top, but the message made his heart skip a beat. "I'm out. Meet me at the usual place. Make it quick, my husband is home." He read it twice, then 3 times, each word sinking deeper into his consciousness like stones in water. The flour from the birthday cake he'd been baking drifted forgotten to the floor as his mind raced through possibilities. His wife, Sarah, had left for work that morning with a kiss on his cheek and a promise to be home by 6. It was only 3 o'clock. David's first instinct was anger, hot, immediate, and overwhelming. But years of marriage had taught him something valuable. Assumptions destroyed more relationships than truth ever could. He took a deep breath, untied his apron, and set it carefully on the counter. The cake batter would have to wait. "The usual place," he muttered, pacing the kitchen. What usual place? They had their favorite coffee shop on 5th Street, the Italian restaurant where they'd had their first date, the park bench where he'd proposed. But which one would she use for something like this? The wording suggested secrecy, urgency, something hidden. Then it hit him, the community center. Every Thursday for the past 2 months, Sarah had been going there for what she called book club. He'd never questioned it, never thought to. She'd come home smelling faintly of coffee and talking about whatever novel they'd supposedly discussed. But now, with this message burning in his mind, the Thursday evening absences took on a sinister quality. He grabbed his keys from the hook by the door, his movements mechanical. Part of him wanted to call her, to confront her directly, to demand an explanation. But another part, the part that had loved her for 12 years, needed to see with his own eyes. Needed to understand before making accusations that couldn't be taken back. The drive to the community center felt both eternal and instantaneous. Traffic lights seemed to conspire against him, each red light giving him more time to imagine scenarios. He pictured her with a colleague from work, someone charming and attentive. Or perhaps an old flame from college, rekindled through social media. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. The community center parking lot was surprisingly full for a weekday afternoon. David parked in the back, near the dumpsters, where his car wouldn't be immediately visible. He felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad television drama, but he couldn't stop himself. He needed to know. As he approached the main entrance, he noticed the windows were covered with brown paper from the inside. Strange. The community center usually kept its large windows clear, letting natural light flood the multipurpose room. He tried the front door, locked. A sign read, "Private event. Please use side entrance." His pulse quickened. A private event in the middle of a weekday afternoon. The pieces seemed to fit a narrative he didn't want to believe. He walked around the building, his footsteps echoing off the brick walls. The side door was propped open with a rubber doorstop, and he could hear voices inside, multiple voices, talking and laughing. David paused at the threshold, his hand on the door frame. This was it. Once he walked through this door, there would be no going back. If his suspicions were correct, his marriage would be irrevocably changed. If he was wrong, well, he couldn't imagine being wrong about something this clear. Taking one more deep breath, he pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The hallway was dimly lit, but he could see light streaming from under the multipurpose room door at the end of the corridor. The voices grew louder as he approached, and he could make out Sarah's laugh among them, that familiar, musical sound that had first made him fall in love with her. His hand reached for the door handle, trembling slightly. Whatever was on the other side would define everything that came next. David's hand froze on the door handle as he heard his wife's voice more clearly now, giving instructions to someone. His mind immediately went to the worst possible scenario. Perhaps she was directing whoever she'd been meeting, arranging their next encounter. But something about her tone seemed off for a clandestine affair. She sounded organized, professional, even. "No, the banner needs to go higher," Sarah was saying. "We want it to be the first thing people see when they walk in." Banner. David's confusion deepened. He pressed his ear closer to the door, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. "Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" another woman's voice asked. David recognized it as belonging to Patricia, their next-door neighbor. Positive, Sarah replied. He thinks I'm at work. I told him I had a big project this week. God, I feel terrible lying to him, but it'll all be worth it when he sees what we've done. David's heart was pounding so hard he was certain they could hear it through the door. What had she done? What were they planning? The lying part confirmed his worst fears, but the context still didn't make sense. And you're sure about the guest list? A male voice chimed in. David recognized it as Tom, a guy from Sarah's actual workplace. Everyone from the neighborhood is coming, plus his college buddies, his co-workers. Everyone, Sarah confirmed. This is going to be the best surprise party David has ever seen. I've been planning this for 3 months. David's hand slipped from the door handle. Surprise party? His birthday wasn't until Saturday, 2 days away. He stood in the hallway, feeling the anger drain from his body, replaced by a confusing mixture of relief and embarrassment. I just wish I hadn't sent that text, Sarah continued, and David could hear the anxiety in her voice. I meant to send it to Patricia, asking her to meet me here to help finish the decorations before David got home from work. But in my rush, I sent it to him instead. I've been panicking all afternoon, but he hasn't responded, so maybe he didn't see it. What did the text say? Patricia asked. Sarah groaned. Something like meet me at the usual place, make it quick, my husband is home. I was trying to type fast between meetings. It sounds absolutely horrible when I think about it now. If he reads it the wrong way. He'd think you were having an affair, Tom finished, and several people in the room gasped. David leaned against the wall, feeling foolish and relieved in equal measure. The usual place was indeed the community center, where Sarah had been coming every Thursday, not for a book club, but to plan this elaborate surprise. The urgency in her message had been about finishing decorations, not sneaking around. He should have felt nothing but relief, but a small part of him felt guilty for doubting her. 12 years of marriage, and he'd been ready to believe the worst based on one ambiguous text message. Did you try to explain? Someone else asked. I called him twice, but he didn't answer, Sarah said, and David could hear the worry in her voice. He pulled his phone from his pocket and saw her missed calls. In his rush to get to the community center, he'd left his phone on silent. I left a voicemail saying I'd accidentally sent him a message meant for someone else and to ignore it, but I don't know if he's heard it yet. David looked at his phone screen and saw the voicemail notification. He hadn't even noticed it. He should listen to it, should walk away and pretend he'd never received the original text, never come to the community center. He could go home, listen to the voicemail, and act surprised on Saturday when the party happened. But he couldn't move. His curiosity had gotten the better of him, and now he wanted to see what they'd prepared. 3 months of secret planning, all for him. The caterer should be here in an hour, Sarah was saying. And the DJ confirmed for Saturday at 7. David's boss promised to keep him at the office until at least 8 with that fake project meeting. David smiled despite himself. So that was why his boss had been so insistent about Saturday's emergency meeting. The whole thing had been orchestrated. I still think we should have gone with the chocolate fountain, Patricia said, and several people laughed. David's lactose intolerant, remember? Sarah reminded them gently. We're doing the ice cream bar with dairy-free options instead. I want everything to be perfect for him. The tenderness in her voice made David's chest tighten. Here he'd been, imagining betrayal and deception, while she'd been pouring her heart into making his birthday special. He felt like the world's biggest fool. A phone rang inside the room, and David heard Sarah answer it. Hello? Yes, this is she. What? Are you serious? But we confirmed everything yesterday. Her voice rose with each word, taking on a panicked edge. No, there has to be something you can do. This party is in 2 days. David pressed his ear back against the door, his own concern mounting. What do you mean the venue cancelled? Sarah's voice cracked with stress, and David could hear the devastation in every word. We paid the deposit 3 months ago. There was a pause as she listened to whoever was on the other end of the line. David remained frozen in the hallway, torn between revealing himself and staying hidden. Through the door, He could hear the murmurs of concern from the other people in the room. A burst pipe? In the entire building? Sarah's voice was rising. But the community center is the perfect size. We have 80 people confirmed, we can't just. She stopped, listening again. Saturday morning? That's less than 48 hours before the party. How are we supposed to find another venue? David heard her thank the caller and hang up. For a moment, there was complete silence in the room. Then Sarah spoke again, and he could hear tears threatening in her voice. They're shutting down the entire building for emergency repairs. Water damage from a pipe burst in the ceiling. The party's off. No, Patricia said firmly. We've worked too hard for this. There has to be another option. Where? Sarah asked, and now she was definitely crying. Every decent venue in town books months in advance. We have 2 days, and 80 people expecting a party. The catering is ordered, the DJ is booked, the decorations are all themed for this space. What about someone's house? Tom suggested. Have you seen our house? Sarah laughed bitterly. We can barely fit 20 people in our living room. And none of the other options are big enough either. David's heart broke listening to his wife's distress. All this effort, all this planning, crumbling because of bad timing. He thought about the surprised party they'd thrown for Sarah's 40th birthday 3 years ago. She'd cried happy tears when she walked into the restaurant and saw everyone gathered. She'd told him it was the best night of her life. Now she was trying to do the same for him, and it was falling apart. He had to do something. But what? If he revealed himself now, he'd ruin the surprise entirely. But if he didn't help, Sarah would be devastated, spending the next 2 days scrambling for a solution that might not exist. Maybe we should just postpone, someone suggested quietly. No. Sarah said forcefully. David's birthday is Saturday. I promised him something special. I've been lying to him for months about book club, sneaking around, planning every detail. This has to work. David made a decision. He pulled out his phone and quickly typed a text to Tom, whom he knew would have his phone on him. Tom, it's David. I'm outside. Don't react. Don't tell Sarah. Meet me in the hallway in 30 seconds. Urgent. He waited, holding his breath. Through the door, he heard Tom's phone buzz. Sorry, work emergency, Tom said casually. I'll be right back. The door opened, and Tom stepped into the hallway, closing it quickly behind him. His eyes widened when he saw David. Before you say anything, David whispered urgently, I know about the surprise. I got Sarah's text, thought the worst, came here to catch her cheating. I know, I'm an idiot. But right now, we need to focus on fixing this venue problem. Tom blinked, processing rapidly. You know about the party. Everything. And I have an idea, but I need your help to pull it off without Sarah knowing I'm involved. Tom glanced back at the door, then at David. I'm listening. My company's headquarters, David said quickly. The executive conference center on the top floor. It has a full kitchen, a massive open space, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city, and it's usually empty on weekends. I can get us access. Would your boss approve? My boss is already in on the surprise party, David pointed out. And the company is always looking for good PR. We can pitch it as a community relations thing, employees bringing their personal celebrations to the workplace, building company culture. I'll call him right now, but we need to do this without Sarah finding out I know. Tom nodded slowly. So I go back in there and suggest it, like it's my idea. Exactly. Say you just remembered that your buddy, don't mention it's me, works for a company with an event space they sometimes lend out for employee functions. You'll make a call, see if it's available. Meanwhile, I'll actually be making it happen. This is insane, Tom said, but he was smiling. My wife has been planning this for 3 months, David replied. I'm not letting a burst pipe ruin it. Tom shook his head admiringly. You're a better actor than I thought. Sarah's going to love this, when she eventually finds out you knew. She doesn't find out until after the party, David insisted. This is her thing. I'm just helping from the shadows. Tom nodded and slipped back into the room. David pressed his ear to the door again. Hey, everyone. I just had a thought, Tom announced. I have a buddy who works for Meridian Tech, you know, that software company downtown. They have this amazing event space on the top floor that they sometimes let employees use for parties. Want me to call and see if it's available Saturday? Would they really let us use it? Sarah asked, hope creeping into her voice. Won't know unless I ask, Tom replied. Give me 10 minutes. David was already dialing his boss's number as he hurried back down the hallway toward the exit. David's boss, Richard, answered on the second ring. David? Everything okay? You sound out of breath. Richard, I need a massive favor, David said, reaching his car and climbing inside. And I need it to happen in the next 10 minutes. He explained the situation rapidly, the surprise party, Sarah's months of planning, the venue disaster, and his own accidental discovery. Richard listened without interrupting, and when David finished, he heard his boss chuckling on the other end. So your wife has been secretly planning this elaborate party while you've been secretly saving it from disaster, and neither of you knows what the other is doing. That's the situation, David confirmed. And you need me to approve the executive conference center for Saturday night, make it seem like it's a casual favor for Tom, and under no circumstances reveal that you're behind this. Exactly. Richard was quiet for a moment. You know what? Jennifer and I just celebrated our 30th anniversary, and you want to know the secret? It's the effort. The fact that you're sitting in your car right now, coordinating a rescue mission for a party you're supposed to know nothing about, that's love, David. Consider it approved. I'll call Tom in about 5 minutes, give it enough time to seem realistic. Thank you, David breathed. Thank you so much. But David, you owe me the full story after this is over. This is the most romantic corporate venue rental I've ever been part of. David hung up and sat in his car, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He waited exactly 7 minutes, then his phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Boss approved the venue. Sarah is crying happy tears. You're a genius. Relief washed over him, but his work wasn't done. He couldn't go home yet. Sarah would wonder why he'd left the house, why he hadn't answered her calls. He needed an alibi. He texted his friend James, who lived across town. Emergency favor. I need you to say I've been at your house for the past hour helping you move furniture. Don't ask questions, I'll explain later. James's response came immediately. I don't know what you're up to, but sure. Story confirmed. David drove to James's house, explained the entire situation in rapid-fire sentences while standing in the driveway, and received enthusiastic approval for his cover story. Then he drove home, making sure to arrive before Sarah would expect him to be there from work. He parked in the driveway and saw the abandoned cake batter still on the counter through the kitchen window. In all the chaos, he'd forgotten about it. He hurried inside, cleaned up the mess, and was just putting the mixing bowl in the sink when his phone rang. Sarah. Hey, honey, he answered, trying to sound casual. David. Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you. She sounded breathless and happy, not at all like someone who'd been worried about a suspicious text. Did you get my voicemail? Just listen to it, he lied smoothly. Sorry, I was at James's place helping him move furniture, and my phone was in my jacket. What was the message you accidentally sent me? It was so stupid, Sarah laughed, and he could hear the relief in her voice. I was trying to text Patricia about meeting up after work, and I somehow sent it to you instead. It probably sounded really weird. I didn't even see it yet, David said, which was technically true. He'd read it, but he'd never opened the message officially. Want me to just delete it? Yes, please. It's so embarrassing. Anyway, how was your day? They chatted for a few more minutes, Sarah carefully avoiding any mention of the party or the community center or the venue crisis. David played along perfectly, telling her about his fictional furniture-moving adventure with James. When they hung up, he let out a long breath. His phone buzzed again. Tom, everyone just left. Sarah is ecstatic about the new venue. She wants to see it tomorrow to plan the layout. Can you make that happen without blowing your cover? David thought quickly. He could give Richard a heads up, make sure someone else from the company was there to give the tour. Maybe Janet from HR, she loved this kind of thing, and she didn't know him well enough to accidentally reveal anything. He texted back, "I'll arrange it. Tell Sarah to contact Meridian Tech's event coordinator. I'll have Janet Thompson waiting for her call. Janet knows nothing about my involvement." Another text came through, this time from Richard. Janet's briefed and ready. "Your wife is going to love the space. We've even got the good catering kitchen, not the break room. This is turning into quite the operation." David smiled. The party was coming together, piece by piece, crisis by crisis. And through it all, Sarah had no idea he was orchestrating the rescue of her surprise. The next day, David made sure to be obviously present at work while Sarah went to tour the venue. He stationed himself at his desk in the open-plan office area, where multiple people could confirm his whereabouts. Meanwhile, he received periodic updates from Tom about Sarah's reaction to the space. "She loves it. The view is amazing. She's crying again. Happy tears. She says this is even better than the community center. She's planning the whole layout. Janet from your company is apparently a party planning genius. They are bonding." That last text made David nervous. What if Janet accidentally revealed something? But his phone rang a moment later, Janet herself. "Don't worry," she said immediately. "Your secret is safe. But David, your wife is absolutely lovely, and this party she's planning is incredible. The fact that you're helping behind the scenes makes it even better. You two are relationship goals. Just please don't tell her," David pleaded. "My lips are sealed. But I'm stealing this story for my next dinner party. Anonymously, of course." That evening, Sarah came home glowing. "You'll never guess what happened," she said, and David prepared himself for an elaborate story about finding a new venue through Tom's friend's company. But instead, she wrapped her arms around him and said, "I'm just really glad we're spending Saturday together. I love you." David held her close, smiling over her shoulder. "I love you too." Saturday arrived with perfect weather, clear skies and warm sunshine streaming through the windows of their bedroom. David pretended to be annoyed about the emergency work meeting Richard had scheduled for 8 o'clock that evening, complaining convincingly while Sarah made sympathetic noises and promised they'd do something special for his birthday on Sunday instead. "I really wanted to spend today with you," he said, which was completely true. "I know, honey. But it's just a few hours, right? We'll celebrate tomorrow, I promise." As he drove to the Meridian Tech building that evening, David received a text from Tom, "Everyone's here. Sarah is freaking out with excitement. This is going to be epic." Richard met him in the lobby. "Your wife," he said, shaking his head admiringly, "is a force of nature. She's been here since noon setting up. Janet tried to get her to take a break, but she refused. She wants everything perfect." "That's Sarah," David agreed, his heart swelling with affection. "The decorations are incredible. She's got photos from your entire relationship displayed on these elegant boards, a timeline of your years together. There's a video montage she made that I accidentally glimpsed. David, you might want to have tissues ready." They rode the elevator to the top floor in comfortable silence. Richard had his hand on David's shoulder like a proud father. When the doors opened, Richard stopped him before he could step out. "Before you go in there, I want you to remember something. That woman in that room has spent 3 months, countless hours, and immeasurable love putting this together. Whatever happens tonight, however surprised or not surprised you manage to look, make sure she knows how much this means to you." David nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Richard pressed the button to hold the elevator, and David heard him call out, "He's on his way up. 2 minutes." David heard a flurry of activity, people rushing to positions, lights being dimmed, excited whispers. He waited in the elevator for exactly 90 seconds, then walked down the corridor to the conference center entrance. The doors were closed, but he could see light underneath them. He took a deep breath and opened the door. Surprise! The room erupted with sound and light. 80 people, His colleagues, friends, neighbors, college roommates he hadn't seen in years, his parents who'd flown in from Florida, all cheering and celebrating. But David's eyes went immediately to Sarah, standing in the center of it all, her face radiant with joy and anticipation. The room was transformed. String lights created a canopy overhead, reflecting off the floor-to-ceiling windows and the city lights beyond. Photos of their life together adorned elegant displays, their wedding day, vacations, quiet moments at home, adventures big and small. A banner stretched across the back wall, "Happy Birthday David, 12 years of love, a lifetime to go." But what caught David's attention was the smaller sign beside it, "Thank you for believing in me, even when I sent suspicious texts." His eyes snapped back to Sarah, who was walking toward him with tears in her eyes and a knowing smile on her lips. "You knew," he said, "and it wasn't a question." "Tom can't keep a secret to save his life," she said, reaching him and taking both his hands. "He accidentally let it slip Thursday night that you'd been in the hallway during the venue crisis. I've known since then that you knew. But you kept planning. Because you kept helping," she finished. "Do you think I didn't notice Richard suddenly being extra accommodating? Or Janet knowing exactly what I needed before I asked? David, you saved this party. You could have just let me struggle or revealed that you knew, but instead, you helped me pull it off." David felt his throat tighten. "You've been working on this for 3 months. And you solved our biggest crisis in 10 minutes, Sarah countered. "That's who we are. That's who we've always been. A team." Someone started clapping, and soon the entire room joined in. David realized they'd all been watching this exchange, and from their knowing smiles, many of them understood what had happened. "I'm sorry I doubted you," David said quietly, so only Sarah could hear. "When I got that text." "I know," she interrupted gently. "And I'm sorry I put you through that panic. Although," she smiled mischievously, "it did lead to you being incredibly romantic and heroic. I thought I was going to catch you cheating. Instead, you caught me loving you," Sarah said. "Is that so bad?" David pulled her close, and the room erupted in cheers again. "Best catch of my life," he whispered against her hair. The party was everything Sarah had planned and more. The food was incredible, the DJ played all David's favorite songs, and the video montage Richard had mentioned reduced half the room to tears. David's college roommate gave a hilarious speech about their freshman year adventures, and Patricia shared stories about David and Sarah as neighbors that had everyone laughing. But the best moment came when Sarah stood up to make her toast. 12 years ago," she began, "I married a man I thought I knew completely. And every year since then, he's surprised me. He's shown me new depths of kindness, patience, humor, and love. This week, when our party venue fell through, I was devastated. But then this amazing space became available." She gestured around the room. "And I learned later that my husband, who was supposed to know nothing about this party, had arranged the whole thing. He saved the day without taking any credit. He helped me succeed at surprising him." She turned to look directly at David, her eyes shining. "That's who you are, David. Someone who helps others shine. Someone who solves problems without seeking recognition. Someone who, even when he receives a text that would make most people react with anger and suspicion, chooses to seek truth before making accusations. I am so grateful for you, for us, for every moment of these 12 years. Happy birthday, my love." The room was silent except for the sound of people sniffling. Then David stood, took Sarah's hand, and kissed her while everyone cheered. "Thank you," he said when they finally broke apart. "For all of this. For the party, for the love, for the adventure. And thank you for the weird text that started this whole thing." Sarah laughed. "New rule, I proofread all texts before sending them. Counterproposal, we keep having adventures where we try to surprise each other and end up surprising ourselves. Deal." Later, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, David stood by the windows looking out at the city lights. Patricia approached him, a knowing smile on her face. "You know," she said, "when Sarah first told me about planning this party, I told her it was a lot of work just for a birthday. But now I get it. This wasn't just about the party. It was about proving that after 12 years, you still make the effort. We both do, David replied, watching Sarah across the room, laughing with friends. That's the secret, isn't it? Patricia mused. Everyone talks about trust and communication, but nobody mentions the effort. The daily choice to keep surprising each other, keep caring, keep trying. David nodded. Sarah spent 3 months planning this. I thought I was saving her surprise, but really, she was giving me a gift, showing me that our marriage is worth the effort. Worth the planning, the secrecy, the grand gestures. And you gave her the same gift, Patricia pointed out. You could have confronted her, accused her, let doubt win. Instead, you chose to trust and verify. And when you found out the truth, you didn't reveal yourself. You protected her surprise. Sarah caught David's eye across the room and smiled, that same smile that had first captured his heart 12 years ago. He smiled back, and in that moment, he understood that the text message, the one that had sent him on this unexpected journey, had been a gift in disguise. It had reminded him that love isn't just about trusting blindly. It's about choosing to seek truth, choosing to give your partner the benefit of the doubt, choosing to support their efforts even when they don't know you're doing it. It's about being a team, even in secrecy. As the last guests departed and David and Sarah stood alone in the beautiful space she created, surrounded by the evidence of their life together, David realized something profound. The usual place wasn't a physical location at all. It was this, the space they created together, where trust met effort, where doubt gave way to love, where two people chose each other every single day. Ready to go home? Sarah asked, slipping her hand into his. Always, David replied. As long as it's with you. They walked out together into the night, leaving behind the decorations and the celebration, but carrying with them something more important, the knowledge that their love was strong enough to survive misunderstandings, creative enough to turn crisis into opportunity, and deep enough to keep surprising them both. And somewhere in Sarah's purse, her phone buzzed with a new text message. This time, she checked it carefully before showing it to David. It was from Tom. Best party ever. You two are my relationship goals. Sarah showed David the screen, and they both laughed. Should we tell him we knew he couldn't keep a secret? David asked. Never, Sarah replied. Some secrets are worth keeping. They drove home through quiet streets, hands intertwined, already planning their next adventure. Because that's what love was, not just the grand gestures and surprise parties, but the quiet moments in between. The daily choice to keep trying, keep surprising, keep meeting at the usual place. The place where two hearts chose, again and again, to come home to each other.